This is a follow-up to the Free and Free about Machikado Mazoku, but watching it isn't required. There was one point near the end of that video about animation details that I want to expand towards animation production, mainly because that's my new favorite thing about the show, and this is after I took off my bias for dubs. This discussion will be very narrow because I'm not going into every detail about every aspect of production. Nor am I addressing ethics, because that's a different, depressing rabbit hole. I'm far from an expert, which is why I don't want to overstep my analysis. I'm coming into this purely from a semi-casual, but that perspective is important. I think most people watching anime are watching anime because they are watching animation and all of the things that go into it. It's what separates anime from the source. This is why it's important to acknowledge why production matters to storytelling and our experiences when watching. I want to explore just one example of that in visuals. In my previous video, I briefly mentioned Momo's transformation. While Machikado isn't focused on magic battles, it still is about magical girls. It's baked into their history and is the catalyst for the story, so it's important to convey that. In the manga's first chapter, Momo's transformation is conveyed in this panel. Shamiko is caught off guard and Momo saves her. We can even see some swirling effects and hearts for added flavor. However, the anime adds on to this. It draws us into the world and its systems by making it flashy, vibrant, and expressive, showing how important magic is through this intense focus. It also stands out from the rest of that episode with the amount of effects and attention given, furthering just how much they want the audience to feel from that moment. On a more character-related level, technically, Momo transformed so quickly, Shamiko didn't even notice, so there's an argument that you can avoid this scene. But the way it's produced adds to the storytelling, because while Shamiko doesn't see all of this, Momo does. For Momo, transforming is not just an act of showing off. She doesn't really have fond memories of her time as a magical girl, so she avoids transforming. Her doing it has weight, and we're exposed to that weight by seeing her transform. The importance of transformation extends to Shamiko. When she first gets her crisis management form, it's done in a single panel. But this is a pivotal moment for Shamiko's development, and the production does a good job selling what happens. Shamiko accidentally transforms in the heat of the moment. That fits her character. She's not really the best with magic, so her transformation shows that. The effects are passive, they kind of just happen. This is a big contrast with Momo, who has a very active scene where she's grabbing her wand and doing all kinds of performative gestures. The production giving us these two scenes in tandem further exemplifies their differences. Their relationship is all about contrast and differences, and any additional layer to bolster that dynamic adds to the story. All of this production for transformations can also be seen elsewhere. The Magia Record manga has a single spread for Iroha's transformation, but the game and anime adds similar additional characterization with custom scenes. The one in the show is intense with symbolism as she leaps off a metaphoric building, which is basically how the show starts, a reckless dive into a dangerous city. Also, the fact that she isn't scared and embraces her transformation goes to show just how caring of a sister and person she is. The manga adaptation of Nanoha has an even more elaborate spread, but production still adds an additional layer. Ornaments appear and delicately drape over her body with mystique and elegance. This makes sense for Nanoha. She's just a little kid forced to fight. It's a very disturbing contrast, but to a little kid I wouldn't blame her if it appeared rather optimistic and cool. All of this production enhances the characterization of those involved and our understanding of the world. But what about quieter moments where production doesn't have to be as flashy? Does it still enhance story? Near the end of Machikado, we get various serious scenes. These are mostly dialogue, and it's here where production can really help. In the manga, we get a single panel of dialogue where Shamiko expresses her past. The show provides us a flashback filtered with duller colors and a grainy static. The visuals differ from the rest of the show, highlighting the severity of the moment but also showing how serious of a condition she was in. These added shots are great for setting the atmosphere and showing context where otherwise context was not shown. This production helped tell the story of Shamiko's past, which then explains why she acts the way she does. Even just taking these shots on themselves, there's a story being told, and with that spliced into the source, it's brought out even more. I'm reminded of a few scenes from recent seasonals. Episode 9 of Akebi had a similar idea, where a flashback is given at the height of an emotional moment. This additional context is filtered to indicate its difference from the rest of the episode, and shows us why Kojo is so attached to her bookmark. Through this showing, we understand her love of reading and how it sparked into one for writing. It's an incredibly uplifting and heartwarming backstory. When placed where it is, it heightens the pain of possibly losing such an invaluable object and makes us that much more invested into this moment. Slow Loop does something similar with multiple scenes, but let's talk about episode 3. They linger on Hiyori at the beginning of this episode, when she reminisces about her father, giving us an additional shot of her still face, reinforcing the grief she's feeling. By the end of the episode, once again, we get the anime production adding onto the story, where a quick flash from her past contextualizes what Hiyori is thinking as Koharu comforts her about her lost family. Then we get a parallel shot where she now looks up instead of down, showing the growth within her character. All of this is visual storytelling, added on top of the source, giving additional value when watching. But the same can also be said with how characters move. In the Anime Machine, Lamar discusses two kinds of animation, limited and full, and goes in depth about their ideologies, pioneers, and connections. I want to start with limited animation, which to an extreme results in rhythms that are as exhilarating and hilarious as anything in full animation, precisely because we become aware of skips and jumps internal to character movement. With less frames, movement is accentuated in a sporadic way. We become focused and even more aware because it's so in our face. When used appropriately, it's fitting. Lamar uses the example of two characters walking aimlessly, and how the limited sequence replicates repetition reflected onto the audience. Machikado has many moments like this. In episode 1, Shamiko's mom pats her head, disorientating Shamiko. This feeling of sudden disorientation is relayed to the viewer, precisely because we can see each frame as they jitter. There's a clear rhythm, which expresses and matches the feeling she's going through. All of her elastic movement also just makes sense with her characterization. She is the bubbly, energetic, and chaotic one, after all. We can take this one step further with the manga cut-ins, which is a very extreme limited animation. These highlight character expressions. If someone is excited, they are really excited. If someone is confused, they are really confused. And it sells that feeling well. Even if these are considerably less impressive than character movement, the charm and simplicity fits, and it doesn't take anything away to have this production. To give one more note, let's also go over Shamiko's tail. There was a point when Lamar discusses full animation, how movements animated precisely feel as if they have soul. While I'm not saying Shamiko's tail is full animation, I do think the idea of having movement having soul applies. Shamiko's tail is basically like an animal's tail, where oftentimes you can tell how they feel, like a wagging dog. It makes her feel that much more tactile and real, while relating to her character. Shamiko is an open book. Having her tail mirror her expressions makes sense. If she's an open book, then it's part of her design to have a visual way for characters and the audience to see what she's feeling. There is soul in how it moves precisely because it fits with her character. How they've decided to match it with her is small, but it's still additional characterization and storytelling. I'm just a casual observer, but I'm pretty sure most people working on anime probably want to convey something by making it. They probably put a lot of thought into why they are doing certain things and how their production can add value to the source or story. This can be good or bad, don't get me wrong. Bad production can often leave us pretty sad, or angry, or empty, but the value that's not there is pretty apparent. I don't think there's many cases where we want bad production. Oftentimes the story can still be fine, but regardless, if generally things were better, there's a good chance the story will have so much more value. I'm not even making the case that one medium is better than the other either. It's just each medium provides something to the story, to the conceptual idea of the narrative. In either case, production can affect storytelling in good or bad ways, and that's important because we're watching and experiencing stories in this anime medium. And that was the end of the video. This was a different kind of video considering I had actually used live action shots this time. I think I learned a lot for how to do this in the future. If I wanted to do this in the future, which I might. You can probably tell the audio isn't the best when I switched to the live action because I was recording in a different way and did not in my usual setup. I wanted these to be slightly larger snacks, or this add-on to be slightly larger in scope, but still retain that kind of snappy quality to it. Whether that worked or not, I don't know. I think it was fun to make, and I think I made some points that made sense, at least to me. But yeah, anyways, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.